Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo World Report at Night for March 31st, 2016. I'm your host, Alexander Coffey, today joined by one Donald Terrio.
Hello.
Is that what they sound like?
You can make it sound like that. There's a lot of options for voice modification in Miitomo, but we'll get to that.
Well, we're going to get to that right now because the point of this show is to talk about the Nintendo, the Miitomo and the My Nintendo.
Although that is some good shorthand.
Nintendo that went live today worldwide. We are also going to be talking about the Dsi Shop closing a year from today. We're going to talk about Fire Emblem Fates, Pokken Tournament, and we're going to close with a little Final Fantasy 15, given that that is on everyone's minds this week. So, Miitomo, it came out today. It is available on Google Play, iOS for both iPhone and iPad. I have downloaded it. I have taken a picture of myself and have looked at a me that does not look anything like me. And then I had to do other stuff, so I turned off the app. But you, Donald, have played quite a bit of Miitomo. So tell me all about Miitomo.
Yeah, so I think I killed my phone's battery, or at least got it down below half at least twice today, just from constantly playing with the app. Basically, you go in, you create your me, and then once it finishes loading and downloads, a pretty hefty update. But once your me's in there, you set up friends largely through things like Twitter, Facebook, or direct connection, which is actually a My Nintendo requirement for points on that. And you go around and you're seeing the answers to questions. You're answering questions of your own. I think the most common ones that I saw were, what type of bread do you like? And if you were looking at a field of flowers where each flower represents a person you date, how many flowers would you see?
How did you answer that one, Donald? How did you answer that one?
I believe my response was two dead ones, and somebody immediately said, "Wow, this is getting dark."
And also, best bread,
Um,
definitely multigrain.
I said I don't care about the bread. I just care about what's between it.
Mm. So, well, there you go. So Miitomo is like a multiple choice sort of thing.
You have about 200 characters to basically put in whatever answer you want. Like you could answer with complete non sequiturs if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like other people who've been playing it today are very much into it. But what I've also heard, including from one Mr. Neil Ronahan, who played the Japanese version, just like you, Donald, is he says that the game is super fun up front, but that it wears its welcome somewhat quickly.
Yeah, the biggest thing you have to learn, that I had to learn with this thing, is that when I use Twitter, for instance, when I go to sleep at night, in the morning, I scroll down pretty far on the timeline to see what I've missed overnight in case there was something important. You can't really do that with this thing. You just have to, go in, get a couple, make a comment or two, and then move on. I think a lot of the hooks for people on this are going to be that some of the rewards for My Nintendo that are Miitomo related are daily. So there is that urge, but say once you get Twilight Princess, Picross, and WarioWare, that's gonna probably kill a lot of my enthusiasm for using this thing.
Right. Yes. So we should talk about My Nintendo in a second, and we absolutely will. But just to clarify what Miitomo actually is, it is this social app that basically you interact with people by saying what your favorite stuff is, how you would react to certain situations, etc., in a cutesy Nintendo way. But it's also sort of like one of those 3DS photo apps where you can put your me in the background, and it is also a dress-up thing, Tamagotchi style, where you can basically furnish your room and your dress up your me.
You can. I haven't seen anything as far as redecorating the room yet, but I certainly did dress up my me. I'm going to bring him back here because he actually went to visit another person's apartment, and this is what my me looks like.
Oh.
If you would turn around, hey, this way. Thank you.
Do you wear skull caps often in your daily life?
Well, that's more of a toque, I think, but I think I had to represent my heritage somehow. I don't
Oh.
usually wear skull caps now.
Do you ethnically identify as Canadian?
Well, I'm like fifth or sixth generation, so I guess so.
No, but did your family like immigrate over from some part of Europe, or is that more of an American thing?
I think that's more of an American thing. And I know I'm at least 3 or 4 generations back in a different part of Canada, but Canada nonetheless.
Oh, okay. Well, the other important thing that launched today, did the eShop web store launch fully yet today?
Yeah, the basically previously on first party Nintendo games, some virtual console and eShop stuff as well. You could go onto the game's web page on Nintendo.com and click buy it, and it would use a credit card every time. Today they've expanded that, so now it covers everything on the eShop. If it's downloadable as a game, you can buy it online, and if you're signed in with your Nintendo account, it will use your eShop balance.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of like what was there before, but now it's a full step instead of a half step.
Right. It's not a storefront like you would see with PlayStation or Xbox, but now that it uses the balance, it's a little bit easier to just go on, use your existing eShop balance, pay for, I don't know, what the Chronicles of Teddy that came out today, and have it go right to your Wii U.
Oh, do you know where exactly the link to this site is? Because I'm actually looking for it right as we speak. It's got to be in your news story, right?
The web eShop thing is basically you go to just look for if you go to the games page on Nintendo's website, you just look up any game there and you'll see the buy it link.
Oh, so it's integrated into the main website. It's not like its own
Right.
page now. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the My Nintendo thing is an advancement of Club Nintendo where you can get platinum points, which you get by sort of engaging with Nintendo's content. By engaging with Miitomo like weekly, by engaging it in the way that you connect your Twitter account, by going onto Miiverse and this eShop every week online, by doing a bunch of linking, you can get platinum points. And you can get gold points by buying games through the eShop. Now, the distinction is that the platinum points are what's basically going to get you the digital games like the Twilight Princess, Picross, and the WarioWare Touched, etc., etc. But the gold points are what's going to get you like 30% discounts off of what are regularly $60 games. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. There's some intermingling, like there's a discount or two that you can get with platinum points, or there may be something that you can get with gold points. I don't recall the full reward structure offhand, but for the most part, if you're buying things on the eShop, you'll build up gold points, and eventually you'll be able to turn them either into game downloads or decent discounts off games, like 30% off Splatoon, which makes that basically what it cost in Europe.
Right. So Splatoon $60, that would be like
That'd bring it down to $42.
$42.
So
that's decent.
For a game that's less than a year old, I think that's given that it takes a miracle for Nintendo to put anything on sale.
Is it terribly negative of me to say to myself, maybe Nintendo can do a little better than 30%, at least as an option? Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with them saying this many points means 30% off, but I think there should also be a 50%, a 70%, a 90%, a 100% option.
Yeah, and that's but they have the structure now where they can increase those discounts as they see fit. So if because the discounts that are on there now, they all have expiration dates. Like I know the WarioWare expires July 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and the Twilight Princess Picross is October 1st. So theoretically, they're going to change. They're going to be changing things out, and they could do 50, 70 with maybe a little bit more of a require. Like if you need 50 coins for 30% off Splatoon, maybe you need 100 coins for 60% off or something.
WarioWare Touched is a 3DS version of that game, correct?
Correct. It's a DSiWare download basically, except it's the full WarioWare Touch game on the DS.
Donald, you are just on fire with these segues today, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because speaking of DSiWare, some news that also came out today, and in this grand celebration of mobile Nintendo, the sad news came out is that the Dsi Shop is closing. And not only is it closing, but you will lose access to every single one of your bought games on the Dsi Shop platform, on the DSi itself, from March 31st, 2017. Or
Yeah.
I think it's after March 31st, 2017.
Right. Yeah, we should clarify. If you've downloaded the game onto a DSi before that date, you're fine. It's just you won't be able to re-download it. And Nintendo's official cure for this is put it on a 3DS, because I think there's 10 games that still don't transfer over because of some rights issues. But other than that, everything that's on DSiWare will transfer over to a 3DS.
Yes, and it seems like semi-insignificant in a certain way, because like, so what, DSiWare, who cares? Like, there are some good games on it, but like, whatever. But it's also one of the first major, like, first-party attempts at saying what actually happens when a store shuts down.
Right.
And it seems like the cure is exactly what you just said. We're going to take down the store, and you're going to lose access to the downloads on the old platform, but we are still going to enable a way for you to access that content on the new platform. So I wonder if, like, let's say PS5 comes around and you lose access to the PS3 storefront on PlayStation Network. You'll still have access to those PlayStation 3 games, I bet, but you'll just have to shimmy them around somehow. I think Nintendo's onto something. Basically, shut down the old store, but give people incentive to shop on the new store.
Right. Yeah. And because we've seen this before with things like PlayStation Mobile on Sony platforms, where they have basically shut everything down. You can't re-download anything on PlayStation Mobile now, ever. And part of that is the reason why my terabyte hard drive on my PS3 is darn near full, because if they shut down the PS3 web store, I want to be ready for it.
Right.
But the thing that's disconcerting here, because although Nintendo has given a buttload of warning on this, like you'll still be able to put credit on a DSi through September, and then they shut it down a year from tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's plenty of warning for this. But what happens to, say, the Wii shop in a year or two? Because there is some content on there that potentially may never be sold on a Nintendo system again, like the Genesis and Neo Geo and TurboGrafx virtual consoles.
I'm less worried about those for reasons that I'm not going to say, you're not going to say, but everyone on the show will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's just, it would be nice to make, it would be great to see, hey, there's a demand for these things, even if we're playing them in friggin' Wii mode on the Wii U, so that maybe they bring that stuff to, if not the Wii U storefront, then certainly the next consoles.
No matter what, there will always be a way for you to buy Sonic the Hedgehog 1.
Or the Street Fighter Championship Edition that at one time had online play, but doesn't anymore.
Exactly. But like, the games that need to survive, like the cream of the crop, there will always be some legal way to buy them. For the less quote unquote important games that maybe the audience is smaller for, if you want it bad enough, you know how to get a hold of it. So like, I'm less worried about that and more worried about the proprietary games that like need the Wii itself or something compatible with the Wii to survive. Like, okay, Let's say DSiWare.
Like,
Uh,
well, 'cause honestly, with DSiWare, I mean, the guys from Connectivity have made an effort to try and educate people about DSiWare, but to me, the only thing I can think of with that service is Shantae's Risky Revenge, which now has an HD remake on Wii U, and a bunch of stuff that I looked at on Club when it was on Club Nintendo. I was like, what the bleep is this? Then again, I
uh,
didn't get a DSi until 2012 anyway.
So I'm looking at there's this awesome website, V's Recommended Games. It's a wiki that's done by 4chan's VBoard and basically gives their recommendations for pretty much every single platform you can think of. And I'm looking at the page for DSi. There's a Kappa's Trail. There's one. Uh, Animal Puzzle Adventure. Pictobits. I know that one.
Oh, right, the art style games.
Yeah, Cave Story, a pretty good version of Cave Story, but you can get plenty of good versions of Cave Story. There's a version of Earthworm Jim, which I had no idea. Gaia's Moon, Go Series 10-second run. That's an okay Flash game that's not a Flash game. Oh yeah, just all of the Go series. There's a lot of them that are actually all pretty good. Ivy the Kiwi Mini, which is a super cheap version that's almost the entire full game.
Yeah, and I don't think Probe is remaking that one anytime soon.
No, and then there's Mighty Flip Champs, Mighty Milky Way, Rayman, the original Rayman you can get on DSi, Shantae Risky's Revenge, Spotto, Escape, and Zenonia. And then there's a bunch of stuff like A-Race that are like endless games. But the ones I just read are like a lot of the ones with endings. You can see this website for yourself. Either way, there is an audience for a very small audience, but an audience for some of the better DSiWare games. Um,
Yeah, so you've got, like I said, you've got till end of September to buy them and end of March to make sure they're on your system, or well, just look up most of them on the 3DS eShop because you can get them there as well and not have to worry about points.
Absolutely. So that's all the new news stuff we had, at least Nintendo related. We have a couple other things we want to talk about. We wanted to do shows for Pokken Tournament and Fire Emblem Fates for the last few weeks, but it ended up getting put off just because stuff happened, like just schedules and whatnot. So we're just going to quickly talk about stuff here. Here's what I want to say about Fire Emblem Fates. Fire Emblem Fates is a good game because it's Fire Emblem. I don't think Fire Emblem Fates is a good game because it's Fire Emblem Fates. The Fire Emblem part of it is fantastic. It's an amazing strategy game, at least from playing Fire Emblem Conquest. But in my opinion, Donald, and I don't know how you come across on this, Neil seems to semi-agree with me on his review revisit, which you can see on NintendoWorldReport.com. But the characters didn't do it for me. The story didn't do it for me, in the fact that it kind of came across as half-baked. The mating system that was present in Fire Emblem Awakening really bummed me out because there weren't that many characters who I actually wanted to mate, and like the actual process didn't feel as like effortless as it did in Awakening. And also the fact that when you join units together to fight, that only one of them gains EXP. That one's a personal thing, but I also totally hate that. Still like an 8 out of 10 game in my opinion, Fire Emblem Conquest, and it's like what Fire Emblem Conquest does get right is that like it nails the gameplay and the difficulty balance 100%. Like playing that game on normal classic style is the perfect difficulty for a Fire Emblem game in my opinion. But all the stuff I just mentioned, the story, the characters, all of the stuff from Awakening, it seems like it doesn't necessarily nail that.
Yeah, I've got 2 files going at once because I've got all 3 versions, and I also bought the DLC because apparently I'm an idiot. But so far I kind of with you on the story parts. I mean, it really does try to railroad you into Hoshido, I'm finding, because well, you have the fact of it's your birthplace, and oh, by the way, the king basically caused a terrorist attack that killed your biological mother.
Mm-hmm.
Versus on if you go on the conquest side, it's basically okay. Yeah, these guys raised you, and also this Hoshidan prince is a complete a-hole.
Yeah. It's well, yeah. Except even in Fire Emblem Conquest, even though you're technically fighting on the side of Nor, you're fighting on the side of Nor practically, so you still can. It's almost like it's Fire Emblem Birthright and Fire Emblem Birthright, but all the characters are a little bit meaner.
Yeah, but the supports that I've seen so far, I think they've been mostly well written. I do appreciate that they didn't call, because I'm playing Birthright and Conquest strictly to get to so I can see the same-sex marriage scenes. I freely admit, and at least the Birthright one, I'm glad that it didn't call attention to the fact that this is a same-sex marriage. They just treat it like anything else. That's what I was looking for. But I think the excuse to have a second generation is especially ham-handed in these games, and I find that I am skipping through some of the other support conversations a little more than I expected I would.
Yeah. Every single one of the 3 games, except for the one that's practically DLC only, the Revelations, has like its own weird problems. Like Fire Emblem Conquest, it gets the Fire Emblem part right, but the Awakening parts, it almost pushes to the side. And like a lot of the new stuff that's new to Fire Emblem Fates, like the castle stuff, it pretty much makes it an afterthought. Meanwhile, in Fire Emblem Birthright, what I hear is that the difficulty is practically downright pathetic, and that the story is even worse in Birthright than it is in Conquest.
I think that the story I'm finding the story in Birthright makes a little bit more sense compared to it, but I'm farther in that than I am in Conquest, so maybe it'll balance out as I get farther along. But yeah, there's, aside from one mission so far in Birthright, every mission type has since the decision point has basically been kill everything in sight.
Yes, that is the other thing I wanted to mention. In Fire Emblem Birthright, all you do is rout the enemy. Just kill all the enemies, you're good. Fire Emblem Conquest has a lot more like variant ones, like you're placed on different parts of the map, like you got to do different things other than rout the enemy. Sometimes you have to claim a throne. And in Fire Emblem Revelations, it sounds like it takes that even a step further, and you're doing stuff like unlocking stuff with keys, or at least doing a key type unlock stuff. So yeah, all 2 of the main games seem to have problems at least.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, this being March 31st, I like to do like a game with a quarter, and so far it is Fire Emblem, but I'm not sure how high this is going to rank if we're doing a game of the year show in December, for instance. It's probable that this slips to the bottom of the top 5, if not out of it completely.
Right. Another game that I might describe in the exact same way is Pokken Tournament, which came out just about a week or 2 ago.
And does have a demo on the North American eShop as of today.
Yes, today they sort of surprise dropped a demo on the North American eShop. I'm actually interested in checking it out just to see like how much of the content they actually put into that game.
Yeah, if it's anything like the demo that Europe and Japan got, I think it's 4 characters with a couple of stages.
Okay, that's not bad. So I expected to not like this game, even though like I really liked playing the arcade version when I played that at the World Championship so long ago. I was worried about the lack of content. I was worried about the character count. I was worried that like it would get tired and old fast. I was sort of getting flashbacks to J-Star's Victory Versus, where it was kind of like this creative third-person fighting game, but every single character did the exact same thing, and there was almost no variance between them. That's not the case here. I actually really like the fighting mechanics in Pokken Tournament. I think it's the best translation of Pokemon combat that you could probably ever hope for from a fighting game. I like that the UI looks like a Pokemon game, except it's like they're actually fighting. It's fun. It's easy to get a hold of, but there's still like some decent challenge to it if you want to master it. Like I've been playing Machamp 24/7, and I've been really like getting into it. The content is a problem. It's a
Yeah.
huge problem. There's maybe 10 hours worth of content, and then you're pretty much totally good outside of online and local play. The single player is repetitive as shit, and the character count is just too damn low. But it hurts to say that because the fighting game that they actually made is awesome. I just wish there were more ways to enjoy it.
Yeah, I reviewed the game, and I did eventually end up putting a score on that review. So I think you're coming in about the same place I am with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did find this that the single player content was getting really repetitive, especially since it just gets longer and longer and longer as you go through the different leagues. I mean, that sort of thing worked in older fighting games, but I would have liked to see a lot more variety in the single player content and in the character count when you're dealing, like as I said in the review, if you're dealing with a franchise that has 720 some odd characters, getting it down to essentially 14 is, well, this is pretty blatantly setting up for a sequel in a year or two.
Yeah, I hope they do a sequel. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I guess is the fairest I can say. Like if this is just a one and done game, like Pokemon Battle Revolution was before it. Like considering this is the closest thing we have to a 3D Pokemon game this time around, like I would totally not be surprised. I also would not be surprised if they pull like a Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion, add in a bunch more characters, add in a little more content, call it the XL version, and just ship it with the NX a year from now.
Yeah, or probably a more well-known example is Persona Ultimax, because this felt a lot like the Persona fighting games for me, where this was the original game that didn't have as many characters as you would expect, was a little light on the content, and was a bit repetitive in single player, and then Ultimax blew that out of the water. Like they added a ton of characters to that game, and they radically expanded the story mode and gave it a nice bit of variety for a Persona fan. So, and both of them ended up going to Evo at various points. So
Yeah. So there you go. If you are watching this, just shoot a comment. Tell me what you think of Fire Emblem Fates and or Pokken Tournament. I am actually very interested in seeing what you have to say. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy 15, just because they did their big event yesterday. After like 60% of it was spoiled, but not all of it. They revealed the release date, September 30th. They revealed that there's a demo coming out. They revealed an anime. They revealed a CGI movie featuring characters from both Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad. They announced a 30,000 limited print run of a $300 practically collector's edition. They revealed a one-off car. They revealed the sound. They revealed all kinds of stuff. And go ahead, Donald.
At this point, since I don't have a system that can play Final Fantasy 15 now, and probably won't be getting one for, hardware and flux reasons, probably until next year. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, okay, Square is really starting to wave their what around, even if it maybe doesn't deserve it. Because I mean, they said today, like there was a statement that they expect this thing to sell 10 million copies worldwide, which no Final Fantasy game, by the way, has ever done.
Except Final Fantasy VII, correct?
Right. In it with remakes, I think that cleared 11. But in the first run, it would probably take a really banging PC port to crawl over that line.
Yes, because there are 50 million consoles that this game is playable on, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Just out in the wild, counting Xbox Ones and PS4s, like maybe 50, 60 million. And there are some people, plenty of people who own both. 20% pretty much of all console owners right now, as of this date, have to buy Final Fantasy 15.
Well, and wasn't there a rumor at some point that this was going to get ported to NX down the road as well?
There was some word of that, and then they're talking about a PC port. What they did say is that this game needs to sell 10 million units to be a success for between now and the end of that game's lifespan, whenever it is. Meaning that this might not be a 10 million plane for the first 6 months. This might be a 10 million plane for the first 2 years after it comes out. Basically, between release and when it's $20 on Amazon.
Yeah.
So I think they can probably do it, especially since digital sales are becoming a lot more prominent, and that'll be $20 practically hitting Square Enix's pockets directly. They sold out of those collector's editions, meaning that 5 months before the game came out, Square Enix made almost $9 million on that game already.
Yeah, there is not a hope in hell that Final Fantasy 15 is going to be profitable. Because the sheer amount of time that they spent on this, I mean, they almost spent a full presidential administration, term limited, on developing this game between verses 13 and 15. So I think if Square can pull off 10 million, I can see why they'd be happy with it. But they dropped the demo for that very late last night. Did you have a chance to actually finish that? Because from what I'm hearing, it's very, very short.
Well, this is embarrassing because I didn't get time to play Miitomo, but I did in fact get time to play the entire Platinum demo for Final Fantasy 15. The reason why I did, though, was because I was actually extremely excited for Final Fantasy 15, even as someone who's never actually played a Final Fantasy game to completion other than the first Theater Rhythm, because the idea of like a 4-dude road trip was appealing to me. The idea of a technologically advanced Final Fantasy game was appealing to me. The budget on the technology looked insane. The idea of this being an action game that's sort of like standardized and not like kind of crazy like 13 was appealing to me. So I was excited. I was prepared to pre-order this game. So today, in celebration of the event that took place yesterday, I played the entirety of the Final Fantasy demo, and I watched the first episode of the anime. All 5, or the first 5 episodes, are coming to YouTube. They're like 10 minutes each. The demo is about 50 minutes long. It's a tech demo that takes you basically through 3 different areas and a bare bones story. It's just here's an excuse for you to step on a tile and get a weather effect. Here's an excuse for you to use the spells in the game. Here's an excuse for you to use the some weapons in the game. And what the demo does right is that it walks you through the mechanics extremely slowly. So if you're someone like me who's never played a Final Fantasy game and has no idea what they're actually getting into, even though this is very different for a Final Fantasy game, you will like 70 to 80% understand the combat by the end of that hour-long demo. So that is an extreme success. Here's what's not great about the demo. 1, the game does not look or run very well. There's a lot of jaggies all over the place, and it runs at a very inconsistent at best frame rate. 2, the combat, I'm not sure if I like it yet. The melee combat and the spell combat reminds me of The Witcher 3, and that it's extremely simplified, almost to the point of being dumbed down, but it still has this weird twist where it's like more simple than The Witcher's combat, but I need to play the demo again, but either way, the combat seems simultaneously oversimplified and somehow also obtuse. So I'm trying to grasp that. And then lastly, the demo is very sparse. So you're going to be doing a lot of walking around without much actual doing stuff. But it gives you a decent feel of the combat at least, and it gives you an opportunity to play Final Fantasy 15 where it's mechanically in its final form. I'm still interested in buying it because the premise of the game is fantastic. I actually really like the first episode of the anime, and something about technologically advanced fantasy RPG still really appeals to me. But I'm holding off from doing my pre-order.
Right. I'm guessing so you're probably not going in for like even the $89 or $79 edition that they put out.
I'm not against it yet. Like, let me say this. I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I haven't pre-ordered it yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there'd be any. I don't know if this would help you at all, but at this point, you can probably get Type 0 for stupidly cheap and probably still have it come with the other 15 demo, the episode Duske. Have you looked into that at all, or?
I think I'm not sure if that demo is actually still obtainable. I think that was like through March or something that
Yeah,
you could
so
actually
probably
download that demo. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm actually like physically capable of playing it anymore. However, I didn't hear great things about that demo either, and it wasn't the finalized version of the combat, which I think this is.
Okay.
If you have a PS4 or an Xbox One, I do recommend it.
Yeah, it's just I guess I'd call myself a lapsed Final Fantasy fan at this point because I didn't put much into 12, and despite getting all three parts of 13 for about $30 total, I still haven't played any of them.
Yeah, you don't need to play Final Fantasy 13, probably. I actually no, I am not even remotely qualified to say that. But from looking at that game and from hearing what other people say about that game, what I got from it is, Alex, you don't need to play Final Fantasy 13. It's probably not for you. I imagine it's also not for you, Donald.
Not with an entire year's worth of 3DS RPGs to staring me in the face.
Yeah. So Final Fantasy 15 is coming out September 30th. We also got a big question mark in the form of Persona 5. Xenoblade Chronicles X is still sealed. Bravely Second. Paper Mario. Mario and Luigi. New
Fire Emblem.
Pokemon games. Fire Emblem. Monster
Tokyo
Hunter.
Mirage Sessions.
Shin Megami Tensei in a mirror.
Man, this is both the greatest and worst year ever for me as a gamer because there's all these RPGs coming out and I just don't have time to play them.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be playing Fire Emblem into September again. And I was hoping to avoid that this time.
I bought Fire Emblem Revelations and I still haven't started it.
Yeah.
But it's that's for another time. That's our show this week. Thank you for watching Nintendo World Report at Night. I can be found on Twitter at CULAFIA. That is Kulafia. Donald Mick. That is one Donald Terrio. He can be found at DONALDMICK. And you can also hear his other podcast, Nintendo Free Radio, at NFR Podcast. That's our show. We will see you next week. You have anything else to say, Donald?
Keep adding people on Miitomo because that will eventually pay off in the form of free Picross.
Free Picross. All right. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.